See what happens.
Hey, I'm
There we
back.
go. All good.
Sorry,
Figured
yeah, I was just in a bad room, just had bad connection in there, so
oh, that's all good. That's what happens.
yeah.
I kept the audience informed on what's going on and just thank them for always viewing and realizing how the diversity with the guests in regards to not only their career choices, but their experiences.
Right.
So criminal justice you mentioned is around grade 10, grade 9, 10, 11 is when you decide to pursue this as a career. Now, when it comes to taking criminal justice and applying it once you're done school, right? I wrote down in preparation, of course, for this conversation, some thoughts regarding political freedoms. So I'll word it like that. So when it comes to political freedoms, I'm going to read this from what I wrote down the other day. The goal is when it comes to political freedoms, the goal is to avoid finger pointing and establish a balance between disagreeing and finding solutions. Both parts have to coexist to bring about change. So now, what motivates you as a voter to choose a candidate who's working in the best interests of the country, as well, taking consideration there's going to be agreements and agreements to
Yeah,
disagree.
that's right. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, no, so when I'm I guess when I'm deciding who I want to vote for, as I guess as simple as it sounds, it's who I think is going to do the best for whether it's the province, the country, the city, regardless of any other, I guess, superficial factors surrounding them, right? So I look at the facts, I look at their track record, I look at what their platform is, and I make a decision, or I try to make a decision unbiasedly. I look at who's best for the job, right? That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah, so as simple as it sounds, that's what I try to narrow
No,
it down to. But yeah,
no, I see where the standpoint is, and it's better to streamline your thoughts to making that the decision or one of the keys to making your decision. Now, speaking of generational gaps between yourself and I, you're recently going to turn 20. I'm at 41. We have a lot of time in between us, but a lot of understanding of each other's generation. Now, when it comes to voting and your generation, what does that look like in this picture? What does it look like for the 20-somethings voting, and is it important to them?
I would say so. Yes. I think as we kind of touched on before, a lot of people my age get stereotyped, right? And they're looked at the people who like, they have everything handed to them and they don't really know what's going on in the world. They're not informed, I guess you would say, right? Yeah, it's kind of one of those like millennial stereotypes that we get placed with.
Why is
But
that? Do you feel? Why is that? Because I was 20 once upon a time, literally 20 years ago.
yeah,
Why do you think your generation gets the short end of the stick a lot of the time?
I it's hard to say. I think it's because of the new technological age we're in. So I think life's a lot easier now than it was, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So since life is, I don't even know if you would say easier. I guess it is more comfortable though than it was, 30, 40 years ago. And I guess
Right.
people look at that and they're like, oh, you people millennials, you were born into this, right? You were born into an era where you didn't really have to work hard for anything. I guess it's that kind of, which makes no sense. I don't believe in it at all, but that's what people tend to think, right? Because if you were born in, even like the late 90s, early 2000s and up, it's like, oh, well, everything was pretty developed by then. It's not like you were born in the 60s or 70s where, life was harder, quote unquote, whatever
Right.
that means. But that's what,
Mhm.
I feel like that's what we kind of get, stereotyped as.
How
So
do you
yeah,
work around
what's that,
your,
sorry?
how do you work around those stereotypes or yeah.
I I just don't care about them really because it doesn't fit my identity. Like I don't see myself as the stereotypical millennial. Um, it doesn't really bother me that much because I don't see myself that way. Um, in a way, it kind of motivates me because you're trying to, prove people wrong, right? So Yeah, no, it's not a big deal.
Well, no, that's a fantastic approach. It truly is.
Yeah.
Now, when we talked as well, we talked about our admiration for the type of speaker, leader, voice of reason that Abraham Lincoln was. Race relations on his watch ended slavery.
Right.
Now, what do you feel has been forgotten about apathy and understanding? Yet, in modern day race relations in the United States are at a tipping point.
Yes.
In the world, because it's not just the States, but in the world as well. Where do you think the message was lost, or the understanding, the apathy, the empathy?
Um, I think once people started um, creating their smaller, um, like instead of uniting, like whether it's in Canada, the United States, around the world, once these countries stopped trying to unite the entire nation, they started kind of breaking off into smaller sections. So it's, like for example, today it's like the conservatives versus the liberals you hear all the time. It's like us versus them. It's a very big mentality that's, I think, perpetuated in the media a lot, like across all media platforms, which doesn't help because in a technological age like this, like everything's so easy to, like you can go on social media, turn on the TV, your laptop, and that's all you see is the news, right? So if that's the message that they're perpetuating, that it's, this party versus this party, I think
Yeah,
that's where a lot of the problems are. And then when you do that, when it comes to race relations, right, I feel like they perpetuate this message where it's us versus them, and this party represents this side of this, like this side of the argument, and this party represents this side, when really we're all trying to get the same thing.
that is true.
It's just different ways of doing it. And I think that's where the problem is, because yeah, the media is a big factor. That's I learned that in high school. The media sways a lot of people to go either one way or the other. So yeah.
Right. Oh, that's a great insight. Now, regarding on the home front here, being in criminal justice, what is your blueprint looking like regarding change? What are you going to bring to the table, so to speak, regarding what you're learned, will learn, and then applying it? What changes do you see coming or would like to see coming?
I want to see a world or country or whatever, just a society where people aren't swayed by superficial ideals or barriers. So whether it's religion, race, age, people should, accept people at base value and, hear them out, listen. I think that's a big problem that people don't have these days, or a big problem. Yeah, sorry. A big problem there is these days is people don't listen. People just judge. People judge right away. They jump the gun. And, like they say, when you assume, right, makes an asset of you and me, right? So, yeah, going forward, like once I get into the field, definitely, through my actions, especially, that's usually how I like to lead, talking only goes so far. You actually have to do things to create change, right? So I think that, learning about the different systematic issues within our criminal justice system, looking at the facts, right? You have to look at the facts. You can't do anything off emotion. We've talked about this before. You can't base studies, or you can't base movements or whatever. You can't do it off emotion. There has to be facts, because facts are real. Emotions aren't always real. Emotions are your mind constructing false realities a lot of the time, right? So you have to look at the facts. And there are problems in the world, especially in the criminal justice system. But yeah, the next generation, it's up to them, right? The people coming up to the system, like me and other people in the program. So yeah.
Now, Christianity has always played a leading role in my life personally. Being a Christian, I've learned to accept my imperfections, accept everyone, race, religion, sexual orientation, for who they are. Ultimately, love thy neighbor. How has it played a factor in your life, in your upbringing? You did attend St. Paul's High School, which is not too far down the road here from me in Charleswood. So what was that like?
Yeah, no, same upbringing for me. Like those are the same ideals that I was brought up with. I went to a Catholic school from K to 8 as well, and then for high school I went to a Catholic school from 9 to 12, right? So I was constantly reminded of, these ideals and how to live, a proper life, I guess, and, the eyes of Christianity. And it's not even, but when I say Christianity, I think a lot of the teachings, though, it goes across the board, for people who either are atheist or follow a different religion, like, respect one another, don't
Absolutely.
steal, don't lie, don't cheat. Like, it's just basic human morals, right? So yeah, it's played a big role in my life. I think it's, sticking to those morals has, made me into the man I am today. So yeah.
Absolutely, I can agree. And it's made the relationships I have with people who follow a different religion or don't follow at all or other a different sexual orientation
Right.
or are a different color, myself being of mixed race. So it's that understanding. It's that, again, back to empathy. And it's that just moral fiber. As you'd mentioned before, we treat each other how we'd want to be treated. And I think my views personally, in my words, it's been forgotten. It's kind of like one of those back of the mind kind of ideas, not for myself personally, but unfortunately for most, it seems these days. So
Right.
a lot of healing can come from having a conversation and just hearing each other out, not about right or wrong, about coming to terms with oneself, coming to terms with what one believes in, coming to terms with understanding and believing in someone else, because it can't always be about us as an individual, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
to hear that from you as well. Now, as you grow older, how important is travel to help you connect the dots? As you said earlier, when I say it like that, with criminal justice, you said it best before I asked the question, is that one can talk it, but physically doing something about it. They're two different concepts. So
Yes.
how is travel going to impact those ideals that you have going into criminal justice and looking for change and looking for the best solutions for everybody?
Do you mean like travel, like in general, or like,
Travel in
uh,
general, yeah.
um,
Just meeting people or for the job as well, or just, yeah.
right. Yeah, I know. I think it plays a huge factor. I feel like everyone should travel, to an extent. I'm not saying go on, safaris around the world and stuff like that, but, at least, get out of your, province or state and go see, another side of Canada, or, go travel to the States or travel to Europe or Asia or whatever, right?
Right.
Because that's how you're going to develop, um, I guess, a sense of understanding
Yeah.
and, um, yeah, I guess you're just gonna broaden your views more, right? Because I feel like if you don't, get outside of your bubble, like if you just say I was born in Winnipeg, if I never left Winnipeg, this is all I would know, right? So
Yeah.
how would I really build any understanding of how the rest of the world works? Um, and yeah, I feel like wherever you go, like I've traveled to Europe, I've traveled to the States. Um, quite different than life here in Canada. Like obviously there's things that are the same,
In,
but
you know,
life is different, and I think it's important to see those different, ways of lives and stuff like that. So yeah,
what
it's
was
definitely
different?
important.
How it is maybe one or two things that was the most different, just about the culture, maybe even, or what was it?
Um, I mean, the places where I went, it wasn't like it's not like I went anywhere where there was like a lot of upheaval or anything, super crazy going on.
Mhm.
So, um, I mean, yeah, I'm not too sure. Like when I was in the States, like I've been to New York, Connecticut, and North Dakota, and like when I was down there, it was pretty tame. Like I didn't see anything that was really any different than Canada. Besides, it's a different country, bigger city, stuff like that. And then in Europe, I guess culture's different. Like
Yeah.
as an athlete, um, the food that I take in isn't the food that they eat there on a regular basis, especially in France, right? Like in France, it's a lot of carb, like a lot of bread, not a lot of meat there. So it's a little bit different, but
We're going to talk about that a little bit, your diet and such.
yeah, yeah,
Just, yeah.
no worries. Yeah,
That's fascinating, though. I'm glad you brought it up now, though. That's fascinating, and it totally changes one's where someone has to adjust to their surroundings, right?
yes,
So
yeah,
that by in that sense, or just viewing how that another country operates, and and how you fit into the mix or what you can learn from it as well. So no, that's very interesting. And again, on the theme of the generations and how you and I ended up communicating, and to this day and moving forward as we will. Now, what's worked for you? Was it a mentor? Was it a teacher? Was it your parent that taught you the art of communication, how to utilize it, how to use it properly?
Yeah, I feel for me it was a combination of people along the way, right? I guess ever since I was a kid, I was a pretty outgoing guy. I was always, pretty chatty. But then as I got older, you learn, to take your place, and then when to do certain things, when not to do certain things, right? And I feel like all the way from, when I was in kindergarten all the way to, university now, there's been people along the way that have, helped me develop those skills. And I don't know if anyone specifically, but I mean, definitely my mom. I mean, my mom's awesome, right? So, but yeah, teachers, coaches, teammates, lots of people, right? I learn from everyone. There's always a lesson to be learned from anyone you talk to, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to quote from your Instagram, and it mentioned, it is solely by risking life that freedom is obtained. Now, what does that meaning to you personally, that quote?
So I first heard that quote in a philosophy class in university just this past year, and it really stuck with me. I take it figuratively and literally in some senses, I guess. I guess for what we'll touch on later with, combat sports, that's one of the big parts of it. But then also figuratively, right? I take that quote as a quote about taking risks in life. So in order to obtain freedom, in order to obtain, what you want in life, you have to take risk. There's always risk involved. It's kind of coming back to like the traveling, right? If you never leave your bubble, you're never going to experience anything, right? It's the same thing with risks. If you don't take a risk, you're never going to know if you could have done it or not. That's something I think about a lot. Like when I really want to do something and then I start debating if I should or shouldn't, I think about, if I do this and it doesn't work out, what am I really going to lose? It's not a huge deal. I'd rather do that than not know it all, right? Not know what could have been, right? So, that's what that quote's about. It's mostly about taking risks.
I sing the national anthem on behalf of University of Manitoba Sports for the partnership I have with Jackie Shaw in Living Music Winnipeg. It's my honor. I'm the only Canadian born in my family. It means the world to me to honor the country by singing the anthem. And I look forward to it once things go to the new normal, so to speak. Now, you are enlisted for the Canadian Armed Forces.
Almost, not quite yet. I'm in the process, yeah.
Which is amazing. It's patriotic. It's selfless. Now, what are the next steps, or why was that the next step, I should say, logically for you in your career, in your life, to enroll?
I've always thought about it. I've always debated going into the military to an extent, whether it's the reserves or the regular force. I guess the simple answer is I love Canada. I mean, it's a simple answer, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot to it, but I love Canada. I think it's the best country in the world to live in, for many different reasons. I kind of want to keep it that way. So I want to, uphold the values that, we have as Canadians, and, doing right by our neighbors, right? We stand on guard for the, helping our neighbors, right? It's right in the national anthem. So, it's a big thing for me. And I think I'm going to fit in well. So
I think so as well. Now, thanks for sharing that. And that's so pivotal in your life, in one's life, whether they're younger or older, or whatever standpoint in their life. It's amazing to not only contribute, but to be a part of that legend that represents the country, right? So mothers, let's talk about that. Mothers are priceless. I had mine until I was 24 years old. It was amazing. She taught me so much in a short period of time. Now, in regards to your mothers, we discussed how important mothers are. Obviously, everyone can agree with that. Now, tell us how important your mother has been in your life, your upbringing, to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, she's everything, right? She's the reason why I'm the person I am. You know, she's been the one who's taught me the hard lessons, over the years, the life lessons that people need to, learn, all the way from, a young child to teenage years to adult life, right? Yeah, no, she means everything to me. I give all my credit to her. So, yeah, no, it's huge.
Absolutely. Now, with martial arts, it's been part of my life since I was 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. I did 5 years of karate, currently in jiu-jitsu, going into my 6th year into that. It's brought a approach of balance with really conserving energy, using energy, and knowing when there's a situation where direct it's called upon and reaction time has to be as quick as a hiccup, right? Now, my influences personally go range, especially with mixed martial arts, which we're going to get delved into right now, from the Dan Severns to the GSPs. We've talked about this earlier as well, to Matt Hughes. It's about the patience and just knowing when to strike when the iron's hot, as they say. Do you feel in mixed martial arts now, specifically UFC, Bellator, XYZ, ABC company, that urge, that craving for patience is being lost because everybody's in a rat race to get to the top and they're missing steps?
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. Especially, yeah, I guess, like, if you look at the two different eras, right? So the way I like to look at it is, I guess the biggest stars, I split the two different MMA eras into two different star eras, right? So you have the GSP era, as I like to call it, and then you have the Conor McGregor era. Two
Right.
two very different eras, two very entertaining fighters, and it's not just the fighters themselves; it's everyone that was fighting at the same time they were, right? So with GSP, that's when the UFC was still pretty new. I think his debut was 2004 in the
In and around,
UFC,
I believe so as well, yeah.
around there, right? So the UFC had only been, a thing since, well, it was bought by Dana White and the Furtada, how do you say their last name? Fertitta brothers?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was bought by them, I think, in '99, something like that. And
Yeah.
before that, it was only worth $1 million, right? And it was a pretty dying business. They weren't doing too well, right? And then Dana White and the Fertitta brothers bought it, and they turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company. And back to your point about the patience with fighters, right? When GSP first came in, you look at any of his, quotes or interviews, and he's a huge, I guess, preacher about patience, martial arts, like the roots of martial arts, right? Why martial arts are what they are. Not so, I mean, when you're in the UFC, you're doing it for entertainment as well, right? It's sports and entertainment, but at the end of the day, it's a martial art first. And I think he did a really good job of, hammering home the values and, I guess the teachings, similar to Bruce Lee. So I find him very, very much that, patient fighter, very reserved. He's like the stereotypical martial artist when you think of, like the Karate Kid or something like that, very reserved.
What's changed?
In a good, okay, so this is what I gotta be careful with how I say my words here, because I'm a huge McGregor fan, right? So he changed the game immensely. So both of them, GSP, Conor McGregor, they made the UFC what it is today. That's why I divide them into the two eras, right? Conor McGregor is different than GSP because the entertainment side is a lot bigger to him than it is to, GSP. Because GSP, like he said, he hated fighting. He didn't like to fight. He just liked the thrill of winning. He loved to win. He loved the competition. He loved martial arts, but he didn't like fighting. Conor McGregor, he craved fighting. He'd been fighting since he was a young kid, boxing. He worked his way to the top, and he kept breaking pay-per-view buy records, live gate records. And when someone does that, and you look at his story starting from nothing, Crumlin, Ireland, he was on social welfare, he had nothing, and now I'm pretty sure he's pretty close to being a billionaire now, right? With the revenue that he's brought in for himself and for the company. People want a taste of that, right? People want that. What was that, sorry?
He made himself a brand, his own brand.
Exactly. He made himself a brand. And people, he said in press conferences when he was more active in his career, you're all up here. You're all trying to be like me. You're all trying to talk like me. You all want to be me. He said that multiple times. And that's what people are doing now. I think they're skipping very important steps in their career, and they want, it's all about, I want this, I want that. And they're not, they're not listening to what they need to do, because people, it's all about money now. And rightfully so, you're putting your body on the line.
Yeah.
You should get paid, fairly. But you got guys now who are like, I want title shots. I want this, I want that. And it's like, you got to know your place first. You got to work your way up to that. You can't just, just because he did it, it took time for him to do that. He didn't just do it overnight. Right. So
exactly.
I feel like that's the two different eras for me, the GSP and Conor McGregor era.
You have a similar approach, I would take it then, with your martial arts as well, just because it's not just words you're speaking, it's actually putting that into practice, which is amazing. Because, and I truly mean that, because it takes a lot, and you and I both know this with martial arts and even the training. You are going to be tapped out. You are going to lose, like John or Jane Doe, the proverbial, as I'm saying. There's going to be moments of frustration, but there's going to be moments of complete understanding of the technique of a lot of different elements, how the big puzzle pieces come together. Now, with Live Sparring Channel, this is your brainchild, clearly created to pay homage to mixed martial arts. You a practitioner yourself, and your love for martial arts. Tell us how this all came about. How did the concept come to you? And here's the big one. How is this being Live Sparring Channel advancing in the context of innovation for mixed martial arts? What are you bringing to the table that enables people to want to partake?
So to address the first part of your question there, it honestly kind of started, the idea for it was an overnight idea. I like, since the pandemic happened, my whole training regime's kind of been thrown out the window. It's slowly back on track now, where we're starting to train again. But when this all first happened, I was supposed to fight in April, May, and June, and that didn't end up happening, right? So for me, once I kind of got over the hurdle of, this really sucks, I missed out on, my debut fights, and this, I was going to be a great summer. I picked my head out of the sand, and I was like, well, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do next, right? So yeah, I forget when it was exactly, but it was like either during the day, it literally happened within a day. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a channel that has live sparring. And the reason why I call it live sparring and not live fighting,
Right.
First of all, if I called it fighting, I would have to have, the Manitoba Athletic Commission, there would be sanctions, stuff like that, right? But the reason why I call it sparring is because I want people to learn. It's about learning. It's not about knocking someone out. It's not about winning. Obviously that's what you're in the business of sports for, is to win, but you have to learn, right? You learn. Conor McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, he always says, you win or you learn. You don't lose. Because I feel like people, when they hear lose, it's a very negative attitude, and they, they get heavy, or what's the word I'm looking for? They start to doubt themselves. That's the word I'm looking for. They start doubting themselves, and they don't go anywhere from there, right? So that's why I call it the sparring channel, because sparring is all about learning. Right. It's still entertaining, obviously, right? Watching people, duke it out with, different skill sets and different strategies and stuff like that. Whether someone's, taller, shorter, a boxer or a kickboxer or jiu-jitsu or whatever. That's why I love mixed martial arts, is because you get all the different martial arts together, and you see whose skills will, either win the match or get the best outcome, right? So that's a big part of why I decided to create the channel. there's going to be lots of content coming out. There's going to be live sparring events. There's going to be, interviews with people in the mixed martial arts business. We're thinking about making a podcast now, so we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Now, with you being in multiple sports, we'll touch base with your lifeguard. So obviously years upon years of swimming, Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing,
Yep.
as well as rugby. Conditioning. What's your diet like? We touched base with that earlier. What's the diet really like? Not just now in the pandemic era, so to speak, but just in general. What keeps you hydrated? What keeps you going?
For me, I've always kept it very basic. I have a pretty balanced diet. I eat my vegetables, I eat my meat, I have my carbs, I get my fluids. There's a lot of these new diets coming out now. Like you got the vegan athlete diets, you got the vegetarian diets. For me, I don't see the harm in having food from any of the food groups, right? It's all about moderation.
Absolutely.
As it is with anything, right? Screen time, stuff like that. Just moderation. It's a huge thing. So yeah, I keep it pretty simple. I still eat the foods that I like. I just don't overindulge, basically, right? And I make sure I have food from every food group. So
Now, being involved in 4 different sports, inclusive of martial arts, how is it in regards to weights and weightlifting? Is that part of it because you're doing so much physicality already, or is it pivotal in your advancement as well as an athlete to lift weights as well as participate in 4 different sports?
Right. So weightlifting in combat sports is definitely essential. You need to be conditioning your muscles. You need to be building muscle. But it really depends what weight class you're in, right? If I am, like, I usually walk around at around 175 to 183 pounds, right? If I have to cut down to fight at 145, I'm going to have to lose a substantial amount of both fat and muscle mass, right? So obviously my workout regime is going to change a bit. It's going to be more muscular endurance than, deadlifting or bench press or, heavier weights. If I were to go up in weight, then I would do, heavier lifts to put on that muscle mass, right? But yeah, for combat sports in general, my coaches have all said, it's very, very important that you get into the weight room, because that's what's really going to refine your muscles. That's what's really going to strengthen them. That's what's going to prevent injuries, right? It's going to prevent torn ACLs. It's going to prevent you from, torn rotator cuff, stuff like that, right? So it's definitely important for sure.
Absolutely. What are some traits, a couple of points that all of the coaches that you have for, let's say, your martial arts in specific, what's a focal point that they constantly bring to the table for you to advance?
Like a specific skill or just in general? Like
more of an ideology. A focal point is in a mentality about how to approach your advancement in Muay Thai, in boxing, so
right.
on.
I'd probably say probably consistency and repetition. So being consistent is huge. And repetition. Another quote that I like by Bruce Lee, he says, "I don't fear the man who does 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times." Right?
Absolutely.
Because if you do one specific thing over and over and over again, you're going to get pretty good at it, right? I sure hope so, at least. If I do something 10,000 times, I hope that I get good at it, right? So
I can attest to jiu-jitsu, and it's something I learned at the age of 35, because I'd done karate when I was younger. So when I picked up the jiu-jitsu at 35, now being 41, it's that training of the mind to continue to learn, to not fall under the adage of can't teach an old dog new tricks, to actually learn again, especially
right.
with some physicality involved, but a lot of thinking. It's not
right.
just going in there with, blinded and just head in the clouds. It takes a lot of focus, and that's fantastic that is a focal point that they're bringing up for you as well, because it's something that you're going to learn and learn to teach others as well. So Gabe and I have a special announcement regarding his live sparring channel. So I will be on the live sparring channel with Gabe, and we're planning for August, if not sooner.
Yeah.
6 2-minute sparring rounds. I'm looking forward to it. And again, it's going to be fascinating for so many different reasons, because of our martial arts backgrounds, but also because I have to bring it up again, and I love to, is just the age difference and just how I've conditioned my body and maintained my health at my age and not let myself go, so to speak. So it's going to be intriguing. I'm going to love training for it, and look forward to that with us in August. We came up with a plan, a blueprint for this a few weeks ago, and we will both be making donations to a charity to be announced in the upcoming weeks, based on our time together doing this, because it's not just about us, it's about the bigger picture and contributing to those who one day can do this as well. So
That's right.
yeah, live sparring channel is an amazing concept. I noticed you put a note on your, or a survey, I should say, a poll, that's the term I'm looking for, your Instagram night. Yeah, I absolutely believe you should, time permitting, with all that's going on in your life, to start the podcast as well. A testament to what I'm doing as well, and opening that door for others who don't have that at this point in time and really want to get involved in martial arts and teach their siblings, teach others, like you're just mentioning, that don't have the advantage to do so, and give them a beacon of hope that this can be for everyone. This isn't just something that you see on TV and it's unattainable, if that makes sense. So I'm loving that. And I'm loving the fact that you can process situations like this. You know, there's a lot going on. You're at an age, and I speak wisdom like a father at this point, but you know, you're at an age, in all seriousness, where there could be a lot of distractions, right? What's prevented you, aside from, of course, sports, the upbringing from mom, your schooling, what else, if anything else, because that's a lot right there, that motivates you to stay focused and not get caught in disillusion, not get caught in that I can't do this? What prevents you from thinking that way?
I'd have to say goal setting. So I have day-to-day goals, week-to-week goals, month-to-month, year-to-year, right? And then you get into the bigger picture, right? So the way I get through, especially, with the pandemic going on right now, everything's day-to-day, right? Stuff can change in a day. It's all happening as we get it. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I don't like to think too far ahead all the time. I mean, I do, I have goals. I want to be at a certain place in, 5, 10, 15 years. But I think a big thing for me is making small goals every day. So, example for today, I got a weightlifting session in this morning. I'm doing the podcast right now, and then I'm going to go get some pad rounds in with my teammates, right?
Nice.
So yeah, that's huge for me. And then just setting those, making those small goals, and then, in preparation for those big term goals. Cause if you can't do the small things right, you can't do the big things right. It's a big quote. It's from an ex-Navy SEAL officer. It's called, if people want to check it out, it's on YouTube. It's called Make Your Bed Every Day. And he really harps on making sure you make your bed every day, because if you do that right, then you can do another task and another task and another task. And then eventually you reach the big picture that you've been, dreaming or desiring, right? But yeah, you have to do the small things. You have to put the time in. You don't just, kind of back to our discussion about what the UFC is now. People just want it now. They want everything quick. They want to be, but you got to put the time in, right? Stuff doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, that's huge.
If UFC, Bellator, XYZ, ABC MMA company comes knocking on your door, would you consider it?
100%. 100%.
Okay, and what would be the factor for you to take up on an offer? What would be not money-wise, not financially, just
right.
Did your skill set have to be at a certain point if they came knocking tomorrow, or do you feel that it would be, I'm ready?
Well, this is the way I look at it, right? The people who run like Dana White, the matchmakers, the people who work in the UFC, they've been in the business a long time, right? A super, super long time. They've watched thousands of fights, different styles, right? So if they came knocking tomorrow and they said, hey, buddy, we're gonna put you on Dana White's Contender Series, right? We're gonna put you on The Ultimate Fighter, or we're gonna give you a one fight contract. I'd take it. I mean, who knows how ready? I mean, like at the end of the day, right? People always talk about, matchups and, oh, this matchup doesn't really make sense, or this person isn't ready. They don't have the as refined, polished skill set. But at the end of the day, it's a fight. A fight's a fight. Anything can happen. That's one of the big things I like about combat sports. It's one of those natural sports. It's a human instinct, to want to fight at times, defend someone, right? Or, if there's a situation, people have that natural instinct, right? So with the right time and the right training, anyone can be, if you put the time and you put the training, and anyone could be at that level, right? So if they came knocking tomorrow, I'd sign up on the dotted line right away for sure.
Absolutely. Now, lifeguard, you've been doing that for quite some time. You're obviously a very, very strong swimmer. Now, how do you draw the correlation with lifeguarding, something where at any moment something detrimental could happen, let's word it like that, where you have to save a life. Your goal is every day to save a life. How does that tie into your martial arts? Because it's, as you mentioned earlier, as we both know, it's not about, and as Kavanaugh says, well, it's not about just winning, it's about learning.
Right.
How do you draw that correlation when one is literally, pun intended, do or die in a situation? It can be to, I'm learning, but I don't necessarily have to win. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. So for me, when I tie lifeguarding and fighting together, I would say quick thinking and adapting. So in both situations, right? If there's a life or death situation as a lifeguard, you got to be quick on your feet. You got to be making these quick decisions. There's no time to think, right? It takes less than a minute for someone to drown, right? It takes, CPR. It's only effective within 30 minutes of someone not breathing. Only that half-hour window. So if you don't get going right away, that half-hour window closes really fast, right? Same thing with fighting. Say you're facing adversity in a fight, you got to be quick. You got to adapt quickly. You got to be quick on your feet, right? So it's very, very different, I guess, fighting and lifeguarding, but the mentality, the thinking behind it is very similar. The mindset.
Excellent analogy.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Now, we're going to go on to the seven rapid fire questions. And here it goes. So what do you like best about your generation, and what do you feel your generation can improve on?
I think we're big dreamers, big thinkers. A lot of the people our age, they got big time ideas that they might not always express, but they definitely have it. Especially, since we live in this big technological age, anything's possible now. Gary Vee talks about it a lot. You have everything at the tip of your hands, right? You have all the social media platforms to put your content out there. There's no excuse for you not to, take a risk and try it. So yeah, I think my generation, it's going to be very interesting in the next, 10, 20, 30 years to see where we take the rest of the world, right? So.
And what do you feel could be improved?
But for my generation?
Yeah.
I think a diversity of views, listening to a diversity of views. A lot of people my age, they hear one thing and they run with it. They don't always listen to other sides. They hear one thing in the news, or they hear one thing from someone and they like how that sounds. It fits their sense of reality, which is, I think, problematic. Obviously, you have to look at the facts, like I said before, and you have to have a diverse set of beliefs, views, to build your own opinion, right? Or not even opinion, your own, I guess, set of values, right? So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Skydiving or cliff jumping?
Skydiving.
Any reason why?
I've always wanted to do it. I wanted to do it when I turned 18. It didn't happen. Hopefully in the military I get to do that. So that would be pretty cool to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Favorite subject ever?
Favorite subject?
Least favorite?
Least favorite?
Yeah.
Do you want both or one?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Okay, least favorite, probably math. I mean, I'm better at it now, but when I was a kid, I struggled a lot with math. I wasn't a very good I wasn't a math guy at all.
Yeah.
Favorite?
Yeah.
Probably like social studies or English. I've always been good in those fields, and I find them interesting. So, yeah, probably those two. Yeah.
Right. The biggest misconception people have about lifeguarding.
That we don't do anything. That we just sit there all day and just make, lots of money for not doing anything. Same kind of misconception people have about like police officers, how they just sit on their asses all day and eat donuts. Like, it's really not the case. There's a lot more that goes into it. Because if something does happen, I and the other lifeguards, we have to be ready, right? So even if nothing happens, we might have, one call in the whole year. There might be something that happens, but that one time that something does happen, you have to be ready. And that's why we do the courses. That's why we do the training. That's why we put in, that's why we are in that position, right? So yeah, huge misconception that we don't do anything.
The Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Beatles. I feel they're more iconic.
Okay.
I feel like more people know them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Biggest thing you've learned about yourself during COVID?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I guess, let me put it this way. So biggest thing that I've learned about myself is things that I told myself before COVID, like, a few years ago, because everyone likes to think that they're resilient, or they have courage, or they have all these, really cool, or, what they think is really cool attributes about themselves, right? But then when it comes down to it, it's like, do you have it or not? Are you resilient? Are you patient? Are you putting in the time, right? So I think now that now that we're in this, pandemic, and then I'm, still staying consistent, I'm back to work now, I'm training, I'm doing all the right things. I think it's really nice to see that all that stuff that I said that I would do in a time of crisis or adversity, I'm actually doing now, right? Putting those words into action, like we talked about before.
Excellent. And we'll be back on RoseNthorn Talk in the future.
100%. 110%, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Shout outs. I'm talking your social media, mentors, teachers, friends, the whole 9 yards. Go for it.
Shout out to Aqua Essence Swim Academy. That's the company that I work for lifeguarding and teaching. Shout out to K West Muay Thai, Pan Am Boxing, the two gyms that I train out of. Shout out to St. Paul's High School. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people, but those are the first ones that kind of come to mind. So, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And this will be replaying, this being RoseNthorn Talk episode 6, on my Instagram story live section of that. For the next 24 hours, it will be on my YouTube channel, up and running tonight for viewing moving forward. Gabe, you're a remarkable young man. You have your head on straight. You see the world from very different angles. There's an understanding that you have, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And it's going to be beautiful to see what you do moving forward with all the changes in this world, and you adapting to them and making the best of every situation. So I'm so thankful you're a guest today.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate it. I had a great time. Definitely look forward to coming back on the show. Yeah, thank you again. I really appreciated coming on today. So that was awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome. And I want to thank the audience, of course, as for mentioned, for watching. It means the world to me. And there's more to come, as for sure. So as well, keep an eye out for adverts about Gabe and I with Live Sparring Channel for August, and our six 2-minute round match for charity. I'm so excited for that as well. We'll both keep you up to date. Everyone enjoy the rest of the weekend. Gabe, you have a great rest of the day and your sparring session.
You as well. Thank you, Aaron. Take care, buddy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.